It's critical that your audience gain valuable insights and actionable strategies to improve themselves and the organization. And your audience's time and focus is precious, and you want to deliver informative and relevant and actionable content for them. And they deserve content crafted specifically for them that they can put to use right away. I can help. For over 10 years as a keynote speaker and virtual trainer, I've inspired and equipped virtual audiences just like yours with the necessary insights and tools to succeed in the modern age of work. Program topics include working across generations, lessening loneliness at work, and leading Generation Z, just to name a few. Imagine partnering with a proven thought leader to develop custom solutions to your audience's most pressing challenges.
Ryan was fantastic. Definitely one of the best webinars I've seen in a very long time.
Our members found his presentation incredibly engaging. His style is wonderful. His use of technology to really engage people from start to finish made the 90-minute session feel like it was no time at all.
Here's how I deliver for your virtual audience. Number 1, content that is clear and custom. Number 2, strategies that are proven, research-based, and practical. And number 3, engaging and fun delivery using live polling, Q&A, and virtual competitions. And number 4, post-presentation support via digital nudges to cement the learning. So join hundreds of other satisfied clients and let's get to work crafting a unique, results-driven, and memorable learning experience that your audience won't stop talking about. Hello everyone, I'm Ryan Jenkins. Thanks for being here. My partner in crime and my business and co-founder of Sync Learning Experiences, Steve Cohen, had a last-minute emergency pop-up, so it's just going to be me. I hope that's okay. And today we're talking about 3 keys to improve communication across teams, across remote teams. We got some really interesting stuff to share. So again, thanks for being with us. Let me first tell you that today's content is powered by Sync Learning Experiences. We create lasting learning experiences for companies' #1 asset, which is their people. And we do that through LMS courses, live workshops, custom L&D solutions. I'd say probably 80% of the work we do is custom with our clients to create some really unique learning experiences. And we got the business started because we knew that most training is unfortunately neglected, disliked, and forgotten. And so we made it our mission to actually create learning that people actually engaged with, enjoyed, and applied. So with that, let me give you a little bit more details about me for those that may not know me. My name is Ryan Jenkins. I'm been a speaker, a keynote speaker for the most part for the last close to a decade now. Not doing a lot live, as you can imagine, but I've written a couple books on the topic of the emerging generations, and that studying of the emerging generations is giving some really interesting insights on the future of work, as well as digital communications and how we can navigate kind of this unique time that we all find ourselves in, really leaning into digital. I've been lucky enough to be featured in some of the most prominent publications you can find out there. Steve and I host a brand new podcast called the Future of Learning and Development Podcast. So if you're interested in learning more about L&D and what the future of work is, we talk to Fortune 500 leaders. We just talked to the Chief Learning Officer at Visa. We recently had the Chief People Officer at PricewaterhouseCoopers on, just having some really great dialogue about what the future holds. And so if you're interested in, if you're a podcast listener, feel free to check us out wherever you get your podcasts. And lastly, I am a dad of 3. I'm married to my wife, Ashley. We've got 3 kids that are 5 years old and younger. It's been interesting to say the least during the quarantine, and we're based here in Atlanta, Georgia. So let's get into the good stuff. Did you know 30 million US employees are estimated to regularly work from home within the next 2 years? And that's 6 times as many as did before. Pretty astounding. Also, over 50% said collaborating with others and staying up to date on the work of others is more difficult while working from home. I think we all could raise our hand and say, I agree with that. Communicating, collaborating is challenging now that we're all working remotely. And then lastly, 73% of people want more flexibility to work from home as needed. So as things start to slowly open up again, and as folks make their way back to work, we're seeing time and time again with so many of our clients and audiences that there is this just expectation now that they have an option to go into the office or work from home once things fully reopen. I think that'll still be the case. And of course, this data leans into that as well. So let me give you a high overview of agenda and the little housekeeping items. We're going to first talk about the digital disruption, give you an overview of kind of all the things that are kind of happening at a bigger level, kind of even zooming out from the pandemic. Then we're going to give you specific strategies to communicate across remote teams, and we should have some time for Q&A, so be thinking about your questions, jot those down, we'll take those at the end. And following the webinar, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get copies of these slides, so don't feel like you have to screenshot, although you're welcome to. You'll get my contact info, so you can follow up if you have additional questions. And then we're giving away a copy of my latest book. And we're going to give that away to one lucky person that is with us at the end of the webinar. So hang with us for the 30 minutes, and we're going to pick a winner at the end during the Q&A. All right, we're going to do some live polling today. So pull out a mobile device and open up whatever browser you prefer. So that could be your phone, tablet, or you can even open up a new browser on your desktop. And go to this link, pollev.com/live poll. We've got some interesting questions, and I'm always curious to get feedback and see where the audience is at on some of these questions. And so here's how it's going to work. When you arrive at that link, when I prompt the polling slide, you'll simply see the question and then all the potential responses for you to choose. So simply select the option or the answer that you believe to be correct, and we'll see your results showing up live. For those folks that are watching this in the future, don't bother going to this link. You won't be able to engage live, but the questions and the responses that you see from the audience will be helpful and insightful nonetheless. All right, so let's go to our first poll, which is simply, in the future, what % of your work do you want to be remote? So this is you personally. I'm going to play along here as well. I'm going to say 50 to 75%, just because I enjoy getting into an office. I enjoy being live with a lot of our clients, et cetera. But looks like we're all over the map here. So it looks like the most, say 50 to 75%, followed by 25 to 50 and 75 to 100%. Again, no right or wrong answer here. This is interesting data for us, but it looks like you have some level of expectation to still be remote, which is interesting. So no matter where you are on the spectrum here, the strategies we're going to share with you will be helpful as you continue to work remotely now and then in the future as well. All right, so tech is changing everything. Did you know? I'm going to give you 4 examples of organizations, and then I'm going to give you an impressive stat, and then I'm going to give you an even more shocking stat that helps us kind of understand the technology revolution that's happening around us and really what's causing a lot of this change, even more so, I believe, than the pandemic itself. So take Halo Top. Halo Top is a popular ice cream brand. I'm sure many of you are familiar. The impressive stat here is Halo Top grew from 230,000 in 2013 to more than 100 million last year. Pretty impressive, right? But even more shocking than that, they have no company office. All 75 employees work remotely, and they use the chat app Slack to communicate. So even before the pandemic, businesses like Halo Top were able to see explosive growth with being 100% remote. Software automation, they have what they call SoBots that can actually produce 1,142 t-shirts in just 8 hours. That's pretty impressive. But even more shocking, that is the work of 17 humans completed without any human intervention. That's really astounding. Fortnite, many of you are familiar with Fortnite. You're either a player yourself or have kids or relatives or cousins that play. Now, Fortnite launched an iOS mobile version, and it was downloaded up by 100 million people in just 5 months. But even more shocking, from in-game purchases alone, they netted $1.2 billion in revenue in just, I'm sorry, the chat box is covering, in 10 months. Just astounding, right? And then lastly here is Bird. Bird is the electric scooters that you see in many cities around the country. Bird operates in 120 cities. They have over 2 million unique riders and recently surpassed 11.5 million rides. And they've only been in business since September 2017. So there's so many examples just like these, but I wanted to give you a couple examples of just how fast things are moving. All right, and these are all numbers that are pre-COVID. So of course, I think there's been so much change. There's been so much change afoot before the pandemic, and really the pandemic has just hit the acceleration button on so many of the trends that were already afoot. And so I think it's helpful to kind of look back at some of these trends that we're brewing already and then try to project into the future what they might look like so we can adjust our communication, leadership, et cetera. But of course, the undercurrent here is technology. It's changing how you and I work. And we've all experienced that. And now we have to be reliant on it to do business and to connect and communicate. So here's 4 areas where technology is changing. Number 1 is company structure. Labor is no longer centralized. The modern workforce is global and distributed. That's going to be even more the case at the other side of the pandemic. As we all comfortable with remote working, we can work with folks that are not local to our communities. Technology is changing information flow. Information is no longer centralized. People are informed and empowered. Tech is changing leadership approach. Influence is no longer centralized. A network approach is replacing hierarchy. And lastly, roles and responsibilities. Skill is no longer centralized. AI and robotics will force reskilling. So you know this to be true. Tech is just changing everywhere you look. Technology is changing it. And also, technology is changing communication. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Communication is no longer centralized and linear. It's now digital. Digital has made it communication fragmented and fast. So you have folks that will pick up a phone to call you. They'll send you an email. They'll shoot you a text. They might want to meet face-to-face when it's safe, or even now, taking the necessary precautions. They might want to jump on a video call with you. They might connect with you on social, or they might even message you via some chat application. That's a lot, isn't it? That's complicated, but that is the 21st century modern workplace and that you and I find ourselves operating in. There are so many ways in which we can communicate than ever before. And certainly technology has greased the wheels on all of these different forms of communication. So it's becoming hard to navigate, but we're going to give you some strategies that hopefully can alleviate some of the tension surrounding communication in the digital age. So here's what we know to be true. We know that communication across remote teams is challenging. We know you want to get it right, and we think that these strategies are going to help. So thanks for being here. Let's now jump into some of these strategies. Let's start with another poll. I'm curious, what do you think, what or who do you think this is a picture of? It's kind of an odd looking picture, isn't it? All right, 50% of you, over half of you now, nope, just right around 50% of you got it. This is Potato Boss. Let me tell you, let me have you meet Potato Boss. And this is a great example of a remote working blender that recently happened. So this actually happened. This was the Twitter caption on 3/20/20. Of someone tweeted this image, and they said they had this to say as the caption: "My boss turned into potato on Microsoft Teams meetings and can't figure out how to turn the setting off. She was just stuck like this the entire meeting." How embarrassing. My goodness, I love the faces of the two individuals looking at Potato Boss in this picture. They're just like trying to hold back the insanity and the laughter of talking to a potato for an entire meeting. And to much of the Potato Boss chagrin, this post received over 1.1 million retweets and likes. So what other blunders or blunders or mishaps you've had during this remote working time hopefully hasn't been that embarrassing and or that viral. So all this to say, I think hopefully this gives us a little levity and knows that this is uncharted territory for so many of us. While I think now we're getting much more accustomed to it and better at it, there's still opportunities for us to get it wrong or mishaps. So a certain amount of grace is welcomed. So working remotely, creating deeper connections. Let's look at, let's consider this is going to help us walk us into the first strategy. When working remotely to create deeper connections with colleagues or clients, most people would say, turn on the video. Now that we're in digital, we're not able to meet face-to-face to the capacity that we once have. So let's turn on video. But actually, that might not be the best case. I'm going to encourage you to turn off your video to create a deeper connection. So according to the science, people actually read other people's emotions more accurately when the lights were turned off and when the video feed was off. And when virtual cues are absent, we tend to spend more time focused on the content, context, and tone of voice. So when you turn the video off, consider connecting then is turned on. And that is very counterintuitive, right? And so this leads us to our first remote communication strategy, which is simply turn off your video. I'm giving you permission to turn off your video. So when trust is established, consider turning off your video. That's the big piece. When trust is established, if you're working with someone for the first time, or if you're trying to evaluate a vendor or whatever it might be, consider using video just to kind of establish the connection, trust is built, and then from there, consider turning the video off. And that way, you're going to be more in tuned, perhaps a little bit more focused. And a lot of research says too that when you have video on, typically you're looking at yourself, like I am right now. I'm watching myself in the video screen versus actually engaging with the other people. Video can offer a lot of other distractions as well. So if someone asks you what video platform you prefer, tell them audio only. I'm giving you permission. Don't be a potato head. You now have permission to turn off your video. All right? That's something to think about. And I think it's helpful too, right? Because sometimes we join these video calls and we don't know, is it video, is it not? So I think the more that we can be clear up front as to what's expected or what's preferred, that's going to be helpful for all of us. All right, let's go to our next poll. What is your preferred method of communication? So this is your personal preference. What is your personal preference? If there was only one way in which you could communicate, what would be your specific preference? Now, for any of us that has joined a little bit late, welcome. My name's Ryan. Thanks for being here. If you want to participate in the polls, simply visit the link at the top of the slide, and that's it. You're already in. Just visit that link and then just select whatever response you believe to be correct, and you'll see your results live. All right, so just among the group here, most folks are fans of email followed by face-to-face and text and instant messaging. Let the record show 0 phone calls. No one wants you to call them anymore. And we see that all the time in different sessions where we ask this question. I think phone call is the bottom of the list, and usually face-to-face is near the top. But again, this is your personal preference. So it depends on the industry, depends on the individual, can depend on a lot of different things, but this is great. So again, look at all these different ways in which we can communicate. And this is pretty new for all of us, right? For humanity, these type of tools and all the different channels in which we have available to us to communicate is pretty new. And it's complicating trying to navigate all this, especially now that we're thrown into different environments that we're not familiar with. My next question for you is, what do these items have in common? Just think to yourself, what do these 4 items have in common? These 4 items have in common this. They are examples of boundaries, routines, and signifiers for remote workers? Let me explain. The desk can be a work only occurs here boundary. Hopefully many of you have established specific places in your new remote space where only work happens. Otherwise, it can tend to, work and life can start blending, and our boundaries can really go haywire if we don't have specific areas where specific tasks happen. So a desk can represent that. Headphones can represent a do not disturb signifier. I know I use that. I have specific headphones that I put on when I'm at my house working, and that lets my family know that is do not disturb. Unless the house is burning down or someone is bleeding, you do not disturb me when I have these specific headphones on. So that allows me to actually go in and get some water and not have to then jump into something, and then 30 minutes later, I can't find my way back to work. The slippers are an out of work mode signifier. And this last one's interesting. The stationary bike is a fake commute routine. It's been really helpful since we've all been thrown out of our routines to start establishing a routine or establish some sort of routine that mimics what we were doing pre the quarantine. And we've heard a lot of stories of folks, how they'll jump on their stationary bike and ride for however long their commute would have been. And they'll be listening to podcasts just as if they were driving to work. And that kind of helps them set the tone and kind of serve as a transition from home life into work. So all that to say, in the same way that these 4 items, that they set clear boundaries, routines, signifiers for remote work, we should set clear expectations for our remote communications as well. I think we so often overlook this, and I think we make way too many assumptions about communications that it doesn't serve us well. So that leads us to our second strategy, which is to set communication expectations. Don't leave others guessing which of the myriad of communication channels to use. And be proactive about informing others on how they can best connect with you. So a good example here might be mention that you prefer text over a phone call in your email signature or in your Slack profile or in your Teams profile. That way, again, you're being proactive and letting others know how you prefer to communicate. Or mention that you prefer an email over a voicemail in your voicemail recording. It doesn't sound like anyone engaged in this webinar is making phone calls, so that's probably good news, and you won't have to use this, but these are all just a couple examples to give you some food for thought as far as how can you be a little bit more proactive about informing others on how you prefer to communicate with an effort to streamline those digital communications. And then I also want to encourage you to consider creating a communications agreement. I'm going to go dive a little bit more in depth into this because I think it's really helpful. We've seen it be very helpful for a lot of organizations and clients that we work with. So communication agreement, the what and the why. The what is, the purpose is to create official guidelines that highlight the rules of how a team is to communicate with one another. And it helps to set expectations to create team buy-in, establish boundaries to protect crucial work and streamline communications. So that is the what and why of the communication agreement. So let me give you an example of some of the questions that you can ask of your team, or ask of yourself, or ask of anyone that you have a lot of communication with. I think having some of these formal conversations are going to be really helpful. So a question might be, what communication challenge currently exists among the team? An example answer might be, too much time-sensitive info is being sent via email instead of chat. Another question to ask is, what is the team's most used communication channel, and is it effective? So a potential response might be email, but a reduction in the daily number of emails would be ideal. Are there communications that need to be prioritized? That's a really effective question to ask. An example answer might be any current or potential customers' communications, right? So we want to prioritize any potential new leads, and talking through how to prioritize those, or if there's a certain channel in which to prioritize those would be helpful. What are the expectations for response times to email, phone, text, what other communication channels that you use? This one's really important because you don't know what the expectations are for someone else. And this varies generationally as well, as you can imagine. So an example here is email response time expectations are 24 to 48 hours. Our expectations seem to be shrinking for communications, which is why there's so much stress around communications these days, because there's so many elevated expectations as far as how quickly we expect people to respond to our communications. But to identify that amongst the team is really important. What communication channel should be used for emergencies only? So an example might be unprompted phone calls are for emergencies only. That sounds like it would be a good fit for this group since no one's using their phone for a phone call. So we've seen this to be really helpful with teams to say that, hey, sometimes it's hard to prioritize, emergencies because we're checking chat, we're checking email, we're checking text. So if there's something that is absolutely dire, make it a phone call, and that way the whole team knows, hey, if I get a phone call, I need to prioritize that. So I also would consider creating a separate agreement for any external communications as well. So these are a few examples, but again, the idea is to actually create kind of an actual document that highlights all of the different forms in which we can ways and timelines and expectations that surround communications. All right, blank is a proven way to productively and to boost productivity and engagement when working remotely. This is going to lead us to our last strategy, and this is our last poll. So what do you think goes in that blank? Blank is a proven way to boost productivity and engagement. In the interest of time, I'm going to give you the answer here. No one got it. It's burstiness. Burstiness is the correct response. Correct answer. Oh, excuse me. So burstiness, what is it? It's a proven productivity booster. So let me tell you the what, how, and the why. So burstiness is when 2 or more people are online at the same time while working remotely. And so how do you initiate burstiness? We'll identify a common time, for example, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that everyone working on a team or a project is online at the same time, right? So just might be an hour a week, it might be an hour a day, maybe it's a couple hours every month, but it has to be a common time. That's the goal of burstiness. And why here is productivity, motivation, and engagement increases when you know someone is ready to respond. It's not, yes, I mean, there's a lot of good chatter and collaboration, communication that can happen when you're all online at the same time. But the individual, you're much more motivated to engage with work when you know someone else on the other end is ready to engage, rather than, up at the park with their kids or, getting caught up on Ozark or whatever it might be. No, they're all engaged at the same time. So our final strategy as it relates to remote communication is to practice burstiness. Sync work schedules. If you can't be in the same place, at least be working around the same time together. And communication will burst with ideas and energy. And here's a good example. Bluebeam review allows an architect, contractor, and engineer to collaborate and communicate in real time on the same PDF drawings. So Bluebeam is actually it's a product that kind of has burstiness infused in it, to where you can kind of imagine how daunting it can be to interact across an architect, contractor, and engineer, all the different communications and all the time that is sunk in the different expectations and miscommunications. But this platform actually allows live interaction and commenting and messaging, which allows burstiness to occur and increases productivity, motivation, etc. All right, my friends, we got 2 minutes. I'll take as many questions as you have. And just a quick recap though, the 3 strategies that we shared was turn off your video. When trust is established, consider turning off your video. Set communication expectations, be proactive about informing others of how they can best connect with you, and then practice burstiness. So sync work schedules. If you can't be in the same place, at least be working around the same time.